All right, let's talk about Halloween, but maybe through a lens you haven't really considered before. We're going to dive into a perspective from the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, and it asks a really interesting question. Are the masks and all the fun actually hiding a deeper spiritual issue in our modern world?
And that really gets us to the heart of it, doesn't it? With all the candy, the costumes, the parties, is Halloween just some harmless fun? Well, the perspective we're exploring today suggests that, yeah, maybe there's something more going on. Something like a spiritual crisis hiding just underneath all the spooky decorations.
So, let's get into our first big idea. More than just masks. The core argument here is that the way we celebrate Halloween today isn't just some random cultural thing. It's actually seen as a reflection of a much bigger spiritual emptiness in society. Think of it like this. This perspective views Halloween as a kind of mirror, and what it's reflecting back is an age that has kind of swapped out sincere faith for fantasy and deep, meaningful reflection for superficial fun. So from this point of view, the festival is way less about actual ghosts and ghouls and much more of a symptom of a huge cultural shift away from any kind of religious consciousness. So, you might be asking, how did we get here? And that leads us perfectly into our second section, from ritual to retail. To really get the critique, we've got to look at how the holiday itself has changed over time, from its really ancient spiritual roots to the commercial giant it is today.
I mean, the holiday's journey is pretty wild. It goes way back to the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, a time when people genuinely believed spirits roamed the earth. Then Christianity adapted it into All Hallows' Eve, a night for prayer before remembering the saints. Now, fast forward to today and it's a massive billion-dollar industry. The argument is that this whole journey from spiritual symbol to commercial spectacle has basically stripped the tradition of its original soul.
And this big historical shift really sets the stage for what this analysis calls a modern crisis of consciousness. We're moving from the history of it all to the sociological impact, specifically how we treat the whole idea of death. And this slide really lays out the stark contrast. On one side, you've got the modern take, where death becomes a plastic decoration, and fear is just another form of amusement. But on the other side, you have the spiritual perspective that sees death as this incredibly sacred moment, a time for accountability and a reason for humility. The crucial argument here is that modern Halloween makes a joke out of one of life's most profound events. Now, this entire theological argument is really anchored in a foundational text from the Holy Quran, which is central to the Islamic understanding of life and death. So the verse says, "Every soul shall taste of death." From this perspective, modern Halloween completely flips that sacred truth on its head. Instead of treating the taste of death with the seriousness it deserves, the celebration turns it into a flavor of entertainment, something to be consumed for a quick thrill. Okay, so this brings us right to the specific framework that's being used in this analysis. This is where we define the one central concept that the entire critique of the holiday is built on. And that concept is called spiritual hollowness. What is it? Well, it's defined as that emptiness that just kind of shows up when a society detaches itself from God. And in that state, sincere, meaningful reflection gets replaced by superficial distractions. Halloween, from this viewpoint, is seen as a perfect example of a society trying to fill that spiritual void with manufactured thrills. So what's the response then? Well, it's not a call to just isolate yourself from the world. It's actually a call for a clear and confident spiritual identity, especially for believers who are living in secular societies. And this is really spelled out in a quote from the current head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. You see, the message here isn't about withdrawing from society. It's about standing apart in really positive ways, through your character, through your honesty, and by maintaining that connection to your faith. It's a call to engage with the world, but to do it through the lens of your core values. And that naturally leads us to the final part of this whole argument, which is all about the alternative. I mean, if mocking mortality is the problem, what's the solution? It's about reviving true remembrance. This alternative is rooted in a teaching from the founder of the Ahmadiyya movement, and it completely reframes why we should even think about death. It's not about fear, it's actually about how you live your life. So the idea is that humbly remembering our mortality, well, it's not supposed to be some terrifying, morbid thing. Instead, it's seen as a purifying force, something that actually motivates you to live a better, more righteous life. Mocking death, on the other hand, well, that just encourages a careless life, as if our actions have no real consequences. So ultimately, what this all boils down to is a call for sincere contemplation. It's about encouraging us to reflect on the reality of the soul,
to consider our accountability before God, to really acknowledge that this worldly life is temporary, and, maybe most importantly, to choose to nurture our souls instead of just numbing them with distractions.
And all of this leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Beyond just any single holiday, the question this perspective is really asking is universal. How do our celebrations define us? What are the rituals we choose to follow? Whether they're ancient or modern, sacred or secular, what do they say about our deepest values and our collective spirit? Definitely something to think about.